Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This is Monkey Wrench Variation, and it's 12-inch finished. Here's the diagram. We have some easy piecing here. We have half square triangles, flying geese, and 4-patch units. Here are 4 blocks set block to block. This also looks really good when they're set on point or with sashing too. Here are the patches, and for each of these patches there are AccuQuilt dies listed here that will cut the shapes. Patch A is a 4-inch finished half square triangle. We cut squares at 4 7/8 inches, cut them in half diagonally once, and you'll get 2 patches. If you're using patches, you'll need 4 patches of the background and 4 patches of the dark fabric. I'm going to use the half square triangles 2 at a time. So when we do that, we just cut the squares and we do not subcut. So we'll need 2 squares of each of these fabrics. Patch B is a 2-inch by 4-inch finished rectangle. We cut 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches rectangles. We'll need 4 patches of the background. Patch C is a 2-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 2 7/8 inch squares. Cut them in half once on the diagonal for 2 patches. We'll need 8 patches for the background fabric, or 4 squares. These are going to be the sky part of the flying geese, and I'm going to show you how to make the flying geese 4 at a time. If you choose to use this method, we just cut the squares and we don't subcut them. Patch D is a 2-inch finished square. We cut 2.5 inch squares. We'll need 2 of the light fabric and 2 of the dark fabric. Patch E is a 4-inch finished quarter square triangle. These are the geese part of the flying geese. We'll cut 5 1/4 inch square, and if we're using patches, we'll cut them twice in half on the diagonal for 4 patches. So that's what we need for the flying geese. Also, I'll need to add on here or 1 square. We're going to make the flying geese 4 at a time, so we'll keep this as a square. This will change, or 1 square. I'll add that in there. And there are just 5 steps to complete this block, and we'll go through those after we look at the fabrics. I have some pretty teal fabric today. Here is patch A. These are the squares we're going to use to make the half square triangles 2 at a time. Here are the rectangles. These are the squares we're going to use for the sky part of the flying geese, so we keep those in squares. These are the squares for the 4-patch unit, and this is the big square for the flying geese. This is the geese part. So these will be by themselves, and we will use these for the flying geese 4 at a time, and these for the half square triangles 2 at a time. Step 1 is we're going to make the half square triangles 2 at a time. If you are using patches, you'll just sew the 2 pieces together to make your half square triangle. If you're not familiar with this method, stay tuned for a short tutorial that shows you how. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. Step 1, half square triangles are done. Step 2 is the 4-patch unit. We'll sew that together. Take your D patches and lay them out like this. 4-patch unit. Sew these 2 together and these 2. Press your seams open and then sew the 2 rows together for your 4-patch. The 4-patch is finished. Put this to the side. Next we're going to take patch E and patch C and make the flying geese 4 at a time. If you're not familiar with this method, stay tuned for a short tutorial that shows you how. For flying geese 4 at a time, you need 1 large square and 4 small squares. The large square is the geese part of the flying geese, and the small squares are the sky part of the flying geese. On the back of each of the small squares, draw a diagonal line. Place 2 of the small squares, like this, on the large square, right sides together. You line up these edges and make sure these lines line up. Then you're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch on both sides of that drawn line. Here are the 2 stitching lines on either side of the marked line, and now we cut it in half on the marked line. Now you'll open these up and press your seams open on both sides. Cut off the nubs. Now you'll place another square in this corner. Here's your diagonal line, and stitch on either side of the diagonal line. And do that for both of these. When you're stitching, your stitches should come out or start right at this point, this intersection here, this 90-degree angle. Cut this in half on the diagonal line, and you have these 2. Press your seams open and cut off your nubs. And do the same for this one. 4 flying geese. Our flying geese units are finished, and we'll take our bee patches, sew them like this. So 1 bee patch to each of the flying geese, and this is step 4. Sew those together and press the seams open. All of the units are done, and we'll just put the block together. Now we'll just sew the units together into rows 1, 2, and 3. Press the seams open and then sew the rows together. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.